Good Morning Britain halted for urgent EU alert in major blow to Keir Starmer. Good Morning Britain delivered some catastrophic news for Britain after the latest update from the EU. Good Morning Britain provided a huge update in the latest blow to Sir Keir Starmer on Wednesday morning. It comes as union leaders say that plans by the EU to hit the UK steel industry with import tariffs of 50% could have a catastrophic impact on the nation. Presenter Charlotte Hawkins pointed out that industry leaders have said that this could be the sector's biggest ever crisis. Reporter Nitya Rajan agreed, as she said that this will disproportionately damage the whole industry. She added that the announcement comes as the backdrop of Trump's tariffs. The news correspondent said that the latest update is causing real concern for British jobs. The ITV program then shared a statement from the Community Union, which stated that the new measures proposed by the EU represent an existential threat to the steel industry. They added, Europe is by far the largest destination for UK steel exports, and losing access to this market would have a catastrophic impact on British jobs. Now, as a result, lobbyists for the steel industry are calling on Starmer and his government to try and buy the new market, as they said that it is potentially devastating if they have nowhere to sell the steel. They are also calling for the government to call for preferential treatment for the UK, but Starmer has not given details on what the negotiations will lead to, despite saying that they are in talks with the EU. He is keeping the details of those talks close to his chest. Fans of the ITV show were less than impressed, and many had little hope in the UK Prime Minister making matters any better. Posting to X/Twitter, one viewer wrote, "Will this see Starmer riding off into the sunset to save the day? Call me a cynic, but sounds more like the start of another dodgy deal." Another sarcastically penned, "Starmer's great EU reset is going exactly as planned," while a third mimicked the tone, writing, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Labour Party." One more added an eye-roll emoji to their post as they said, "Tell Starmer, he would have probably given the steel contracts to the French anyway." It was meant to be a typical Wednesday morning on Good Morning Britain, a lively mix of headlines, heated political debate, and the occasional dose of light-hearted banter. But just as Susanna Reid and Ed Balls prepared to question a cabinet minister about Labour's new economic agenda, chaos erupted in the studio. The familiar music that usually transitions viewers to a commercial break was abruptly replaced by a somber announcement. We're interrupting this broadcast with breaking news from Brussels. Within seconds, the atmosphere changed. The studio lights seemed sharper, the air tenser. Susanna looked up from her notes as producers in the background waved frantically, signaling that something major was unfolding. "We're just hearing," she began cautiously, "that the European Union has issued an urgent alert regarding the UK's latest trade proposals, and this could have serious implications for the Prime Minister's negotiations." The news, as it turned out, was nothing short of a political thunderclap. According to initial reports, EU officials had rejected a key aspect of Keir Starmer's post-Brexit trade reform plan, a proposal Labour had hailed as the start of a new era in UK-European relations. The rejection was not only swift but scathing. Brussels accused the UK government of strategic ambiguity and warned that the current framework fails to meet fundamental trade integrity standards. As the alert sank in, the Good Morning Britain studio fell into a rare hush. Susanna Reid, known for her composure, looked momentarily stunned. Ed Balls, himself a former Labour minister, shifted uneasily in his chair. "This," he said finally, "is a huge blow for Starmer. The whole plan was built on rebuilding trust with the EU, and this statement suggests that trust just isn't there." The shockwaves. The timing could not have been worse. Only hours earlier, Keir Starmer had given a speech in Manchester celebrating what he called a pragmatic partnership with Europe. He had promised smoother trade for small businesses, greater cooperation on security, and a relationship built on mutual respect. The Brussels rejection made those words sound painfully hollow. Social media ignited almost instantly. Within minutes, #EUAlert and #StarmerBlow were trending on X, formerly Twitter. Viewers flooded GMB's comment feed with reactions ranging from anger to disbelief. One user wrote, "We were promised stability. Instead, we're back to square one with Brussels." Another added, Starmer wanted to fix Brexit, and the EU just told him they're not buying it. Back in the studio, the GMB team scrambled to make sense of it all. Political editor Ranveer Singh joined live from Westminster, her voice cutting through the static tension. This is a real crisis moment for Downing Street. Sources close to the government tell me that ministers were blindsided by the timing of the EU's announcement. They were expecting negotiations to continue quietly behind closed doors, not a public rebuke like this. Susanna Reid takes control. Sensing the gravity of the moment, Susanna Reid switched from host to hard-hitting interviewer. "Let's be clear," she said, turning to Ed Balls. "If Brussels no longer trusts the UK, doesn't that completely undermine Starmer's promise of rebuilding international confidence?" Ed sighed. "It's a nightmare scenario, Susanna. Starmer has tried to position himself as the grown-up in the room after years of Brexit chaos. But now, it looks like the EU doesn't see him as any more reliable than his predecessors. This could haunt him politically, especially with the right already accusing him of wanting to rejoin by stealth." Susanna pressed on. "And yet," she continued, "Labour promised transparency and partnership. How does this square with the EU accusing them of ambiguity?" At that moment, viewers could feel the tension even through their screens. The host's conversation had the sharp, measured rhythm of political theater, but beneath it was genuine alarm. The program had pivoted from morning TV to live crisis coverage. The government's response. Within 20 minutes, a spokesperson from Number 10 joined the show via video link. "This government remains fully committed to constructive engagement with our European partners," they insisted, though their tone betrayed strain. "We are reviewing the EU's statement and will respond in due course." Susanna didn't let them off easily. "But isn't this exactly the kind of diplomatic breakdown Labour said wouldn't happen under your leadership?" she asked pointedly. "You've had months to prepare these proposals. How did this catch you off guard?" The spokesperson hesitated, then resorted to a familiar deflection. "We believe this is a misunderstanding of our position, and we're confident it can be resolved." Ed Balls raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like political code for we didn't see it coming," he quipped, earning a few nervous laughs from the crew. Viewers react, and the debate explodes. The fallout grew louder. Business leaders expressed concern about uncertainty, while opposition voices pounced on the opportunity. Reform UK's Nigel Farage quickly appeared on GB News, calling the EU's statement proof that Starmer's Labour still doesn't understand Brussels. On Good Morning Britain's own social media channels, the reaction was split. Some viewers praised the show's quick coverage. "This is why GMB is the best at breaking news," one wrote, while others accused the presenters of ganging up on Starmer. "Susanna Reid should run for PM," joked one user. "At least she asks the questions no one else dares to." By the time the show returned to regular programming, the story had already made global headlines. European networks replayed clips of Reid's questioning, while UK tabloids splashed with variations of the same line, "Starmer's EU gamble in crisis." A morning that changed everything. For Good Morning Britain, the episode was a reminder of its power to shape the national conversation. What began as another political chat turned into one of the most dramatic on-air moments of the year. For Keir Starmer, it was a brutal wake-up call, a test not only of policy, but of credibility. Later that day, Downing Street released a carefully worded statement reaffirming its commitment to stable trade relations. But analysts were quick to point out that the damage was already done. As one insider put it, "You can't talk about rebuilding bridges when the EU's just blown a hole in the foundation." The aftermath. In the days that followed, Good Morning Britain devoted multiple segments to the developing story. Political guests argued over whether Starmer could recover, while viewers called in to vent frustration over the endless Brexit aftershocks. Yet amid the political noise, one thing was clear. The show had once again proven its place as Britain's most unpredictable and unflinchingly direct morning program. As Susanna Reid signed off that morning, she offered a rare moment of reflection. "Politics changes fast, sometimes faster than even we can keep up. But when the news breaks, we'll be here."